Rich grandmother exposes maid's daughter. But grandson's amazing act revealed her hidden shame. In the heart of their picturesque suburban town, Eleanor Monroe basked in her wealth. At 65, she was the epitome of grace and status, with silver hair meticulously styled and opulent jewels sparkling against her silk attire. Her lavish parties were the talk of the town, showcasing exquisite decorations and indulgent feasts. Just when it seemed nothing could tarnish her perfect image, the winds of fate whispered a dark rumor that set her world spinning. Rosa, her loyal maid, was cornered by disturbances involving her daughter Sophia, expelled from school due to unfounded allegations swirling in the air like dandelion seeds in the breeze. Eleanor felt a fire ignite within, determined to protect her reputation. But as tensions rose, her 17-year-old grandson Jake, a football star with a heart of gold, could not bear to watch Sophia suffer. Every laugh aimed at her struck him like a punch to the gut. One day, as Jake tossed a ball around, he spotted her drawing alone, detailed strokes capturing beauty amid chaos. He was captivated. He knew that instead of turning their backs like everyone else, they could uplift Sophia from the ashes of her humiliation. "Your art. It's incredible," he exclaimed one sunny afternoon, catching her off guard. His genuine smile sparked warmth in her heart. With each passing day, they grew closer. Encouraged by Jake, Sophia planned to showcase her artwork at the town's annual fair, a vibrant tradition marked by laughter, joy, and fierce community pride. The preparation filled her with a mixture of excitement and fear. Could she really stand out amid such judgment? But Eleanor felt a chill at the thought of Jake's bond with Sophia. Their connection threatened the opulent facade she had carefully crafted. The fair was nearing, and she felt desperate to remind her grandson of his obligations and status. Yet each time Jake spoke of Sophia's art, pride swelled within him, and frustration boiled within her. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day of the fair arrived, filled with vibrant colors and laughter that echoed through the air. Suddenly, the crowd turned their attention toward Jake and Sophia as they stood side by side, Sophia's paintings alight with life. As she unveiled her art, the murmurs of admiration swelled, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. But in that moment, a memory came rushing back to Eleanor, a time in her youth when she too faced judgment and exclusion. As she battled her emotions, she felt faint. Was she losing the autonomy she clung to for so long? As cheers erupted for Jake and Sophia, Eleanor stood frozen at the edge of the celebration. Could she evolve past the limitations of her surroundings? The crowd's admiration of Sophia stirred a pang of regret in her chest. In that exhilarating moment, the question loomed, was it time to choose empathy over legacy? With so much at stake, her heart raced as she grappled with the hidden truths of her past. Would she step forward and embrace change, or retreat into familiar shadows? The fair pulsed with possibility, holding Eleanor at the edge of a pivotal choice. Eleanor's thoughts danced wildly as the crowd roared around her, cheers for Jake and Sophia spilling like confetti in the wind. Each joyful cry sank deeper into her heart, tugging at the very essence of her being. She felt as if she were trapped in a snow globe, a perfect world where everything sparkled but ultimately lacked substance. As Sophia stepped back to let the crowd admire her work, Eleanor's gaze sharpened. She noticed the passion of the onlookers, their faces lit with inspiration. Could it be that Sophia's art, an expression of resilience, beauty, and emotion, was something more valuable than her own polished reputation? The thought burned hotter than a raging fire, filling her with both dread and exhilaration. "Grandma!" Jake's voice broke through her reverie, pulling her from her thoughts. His eyes sparkled with youthful enthusiasm as he waved her over. He could sense the weight of the moment, the potential for vulnerability that hung in the air. "Come see," he urged, his voice full of life. For a moment, the tension faded. There was only Jake and the hope swirling around them. But fear gripped Eleanor tightly, turning emerald green as echoes of judgment crept into her mind. What would the other guests think? The wealthy elite of the town could be cruel. Would they accept this girl, the maid's daughter, the outcast? Could they bear the sight of her standing shoulder to shoulder with their golden boy? Suddenly, with determination surging through her, Eleanor took a deep breath. The sun cast a radiant glow around her, illuminating her path. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? Could she finally embrace change? Pushing through the crowd, she approached Jake and Sophia, all eyes on her. The moment was pivotal, a crossroads of sorts where decisions bore the weight of consequence. "Sophia," she began, her voice shaking yet steady, "your artwork is extraordinary." The surprise in Sophia's wide eyes only fueled Eleanor's courage. Here was a young woman who had fought against unkind currents, and there she was, brilliant and unapologetic. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them, a breath held in curiosity. Jake's supportive grin encouraged Eleanor to continue. "I'm afraid I let my status blind me to the beauty that exists outside my bubble," she confessed, her voice wavering before the crowd. A murmur passed through the assembled guests, a ripple of shock that soon transformed into whispers of approval. Eleanor could almost taste the bittersweetness of change. What had held her captive for so long now felt almost liberating, the weight of stoicism was about to be lifted. "I want to support you, Sophia. Not just today, but always," she declared, the sincerity radiating in her gaze. "I want us to collaborate. I want our stories to intertwine." As Sophia blinked away tears, the air crackled with unexpected energy. The crowd, once filled with hesitant whispers, erupted into applause, not just for the artwork, but for the courage that had sparked connection and community. In that moment, Eleanor felt a difference. The pieces of her old life were still there, but they no longer defined her. She watched Jake and Sophia standing together, triumph written on their faces, and realized that love and compassion could weave a tapestry far richer than status ever could. But just as something beautiful began to unfold, a figure at the edge of the crowd caught her eye. A stranger, cloaked in shadows, stood silent and still, his gaze piercing through her. Why did he look familiar? Eleanor's heart raced with a mix of dread and intrigue. What secrets did this stranger hold, and how would they affect the fragile new bond she was starting to build? Eleanor's gaze locked onto the stranger. He stood apart, draped in a dark coat that seemed to swallow the light around him. Every cheer from the crowd felt muffled, distant, as if she were hearing it from underwater. He was watching her, and something in his eyes was both haunting and familiar, sending chills down her spine. "Grandma?" Jake's voice called again, a thread of concern weaving through his excitement. He grabbed her hand, pulling her focus back toward him. The warmth of his touch grounded her, but her instincts were still bristling. "I'm here, sweetheart." Eleanor forced a smile, casting a fleeting glance back at the stranger. But he was gone, vanishing into the sea of faces, leaving in his wake a sense of urgency and unease. "Did you see Sophia's mural?" Jake asked, his youthful exuberance bouncing back. "It's like magic." "Yes, she's incredibly talented." Eleanor tried to refocus on her grandson but couldn't shake the feeling that shadows were creeping in on her newfound light. As the applause faded, Sophia stepped back to let the spotlight shine on the viewer's creations. But rather than basking in the moment, Eleanor felt a void creeping back in. What if the stranger returned? What if he unveiled secrets that would fracture the fragile bond she had just forged? "Can you help me?" Jake's voice was soft, concern etched on his small face. "You're not like the other grown-ups anymore. You're different." Eleanor knelt to meet his gaze, the weight of her worries wavering for just a moment. "I am trying to be better," she replied earnestly, brushing a stray hair from his brow. "Maybe we can be better together." Her words hung in the air, as if testing a new reality between them. They both watched Sophia, who was now encouraging others to participate, her enthusiasm bubbling over like champagne. The crowd responded, inspired. Eleanor marveled at the girl's ability to bring people together, fearless in her pursuit of acceptance. "Let us help her," Jake exclaimed, his eyes shining with unfiltered joy. Eleanor's heart swelled at the idea, but just as quickly, anxiety crept in again. What if the other guests laughed? What if they whispered disdain about Sophia and her origins? But this fear felt different now. It was smaller somehow, pushed to the fringes by the warmth of Jacob's hand in hers. "Okay," Eleanor said, voice steadying with purpose. "Let us do it." They moved towards Sophia, mingling among the gallery, laughing and talking over the works displayed. Eleanor felt a rush of hope igniting in her chest, then, just as hope flared, the hushed whispers grew louder. A tight-lipped woman broke the crowd's laughter with a sharp criticism directed at Eleanor. "How nice of you to show your support, but let us not kid ourselves, some things can't change overnight." The crowd turned to Eleanor, wide-eyed and unblinking. Her skin prickled as fresh fear bloomed inside her, and for a moment, she felt the eyes of the gathered townsfolk judging not just her connection to Sophia, but the entirety of her life. The happiness beginning to swell in her heart suddenly evaporated like mist in sunlight. Eleanor steeled herself, glancing quickly at Jake, who now looked worried. She saw the stranger again, appearing just beyond the edge of the crowd, watching her with keen interest. This time, she realized who he was, a part of her past lurking in her present, poised and dangerous. "Why are we letting fear dictate our actions?" Eleanor spoke, her voice breaking the tension, echoing out like a defiant pulse. "We're all here for beauty, for connection, not judgment. Let us celebrate." As murmurs turned into hesitant applause, Eleanor felt her hold on the moment slipping. The stranger's presence loomed larger, heavier in her mind. What price would her new journey exact? Would she let the whispers drown her out? Or could she confront what lay hidden in shadows, including the man who stood watching her? This was only the beginning, but Eleanor's resolve was strong. She would fight for this new life or risk losing it all. But would the stranger stay silent, or would his truth burst forth, unearthing the secret she tried so hard to hide? Eleanor stood rooted in place, her heart racing. The muted chatter of the crowd pulsed around her, but her focus narrowed to the stranger's gaze. It weighed on her, heavy and merciless. It felt as if he had crawled from the very depths of her past, dragging with him all the regrets and unresolved fears that she thought were buried. The applause faded into uneasy murmurs, and Eleanor felt both Jake's small hand in hers and the world's expectations tightening around her like a noose. She couldn't allow their whispers to dictate her actions any longer. "Let us get this back on track," she said, forcing a smile. The crowd was still watching, awaiting her reaction. Maybe perhaps her courage could inspire them to unite rather than fracture. "Come on, buddy. Let us show them what we can do," Eleanor said, kneeling to Jacob's level, trying to channel her newfound resolve into something tangible. "Are you with me?" "Yeah, Grandma." Jake's face lit up, his excitement bubbling over again. He didn't seem to grasp the storm brewing in his grandmother's heart. But that was just it, wasn't it? He believed in her. Together, they stepped forward towards Sophia, who was still flowing with energy and excitement among the art pieces. "How can we help?" Eleanor asked, her voice now steady and bold. Sophia's eyes sparkled as she explained her vision for a community art piece, something where everyone could add their mark, a symbol of coming together despite differences. Eleanor caught a glimpse of the stranger again, and her insides churned. Could she bear his return? But as she focused back on Sophia, who was explaining the importance of collective creativity, Eleanor felt a flicker of hope ignite. The crowd began to disperse, participants edging toward tables loaded with paint and canvas. Eleanor joined in, ordering her racing thoughts. She grabbed a brush, dipped it in vibrant blue paint, and made her first stroke. Jake followed suit, splattering his excitement on the canvas, giggling as he told his own story through art. But still, the stranger lingered. She could sense his eyes on her as she painted, a reminder of all she was running from. Widows pulled her back, memories nudged at her, haunting her with the life decisions that had sown discontent around her heart. Would everything unravel if he revealed himself? Would they see her as she once was? As Jake laughed and joined other children, painting bright suns and flowers, Eleanor took a deep breath. The joy of the moment was intoxicating. All around her, laughter filled the air as others joined in. Families, friends, everyone was interconnected in this moment. It was beautiful, raw, and real. Yet the shadow lingered. "Just don't let them see you worry, Eleanor," she whispered to herself. "You've come too far." But as she painted, she inadvertently turned toward the crowd, her eyes searching. And there he was, that dark figure. This time, he moved closer, hands tucked deep into his pockets. A sinking dread coiled in her stomach. "What do you want?" She mouthed silently, heart thrumming. With a sudden burst of color, Jake approached her with a beaming smile, interrupting her train of thought. "Grandma, look! I made a rainbow." Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. His innocence, his spirit, the embodiment of everything she wanted to protect. This moment was hers, but would it last? The stranger's presence felt like a promise, but what was he promising? As their eyes met, everything inside Eleanor trembled. She could no longer ignore him. What did he know that could unravel the hope she was so desperately clinging to? Was this day truly about connection, or would it reveal her past in ways she never expected? Before she could answer her own questions, the murmurs began again. "Is that the woman from?" Eleanor turned sharply. The stranger stepped forward, ready to speak. She gripped Jake's hand tighter. "Don't," she warned under her breath. The truth loomed as heavy as the paint they held, ready to spill over and stain everything in its path. Eleanor's heart raced. Would today mark the beginning of something new, or would it pull her back into the shadows? The crowd held its breath, and Eleanor stood at the precipice of a life-altering revelation. What secrets would emerge, and could she face them? Eleanor's heartbeat drummed louder, drowning out the murmur of the crowd. Time stretched as she faced the stranger, each second feeling like an eternity. His presence felt charged, an electric reminder of the past that she had buried so deep. Could she face it? Jake tugged on her arm, his innocent enthusiasm a stark contrast to the turmoil within her. "Grandma, look! I made a star." He pointed at his masterpiece, an explosion of colors and shapes that he had splashed onto the canvas. Eleanor forced a smile, though her insides twisted in knots. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Just like you." She knelt beside him, hoping to pull herself back into the joy of the moment. But the shadow of the stranger loomed. "He's coming closer," Jake said, unaware of the tension. "Can we invite him to paint with us?" "No." The urgency in her voice surprised even her. Jake's wide eyes captured the rawness of her fear. She softened quickly, laying a hand on his shoulder. "No, buddy, let us just keep painting, okay?" But Jake had already dashed off, trail of laughter echoing as he darted toward the stranger. "Come and paint," he called, his little voice vibrant with excitement. Eleanor's heart sank. Panic surged through her as she grasped for Jake. "No. Wait, don't." But her words had already fallen into the chaotic whirl of creativity and noise erupting around her. The stranger paused, his expression shifting from a passive observer to one of contemplation. He crouched to meet Jake's enthusiastic gaze. The moment stretched like taffy, suspended between hope and dread. She wanted to scream at him to run back to her, but then she remembered that he was a child filled with belief, untainted by the complexities of life. "Are you an artist too?" Jake asked, eyes glimmering with admiration. His question felt like razor blades cutting through Eleanor's resolve. She stood frozen as the stranger leaned in closer. "I used to be, a long time ago," he replied, his voice low but resonating with hidden depth. "What about you?" "I'm gonna be a famous artist," Jake declared proudly, hands on his hips. Just wait and see. The crowd began shifting, some parents glancing over, intrigued by the interaction. Eleanor's chest tightened. Would the stranger's words stir echoes in their memories, eliciting judgment or pity? Heat crept up her neck, defensive instincts flaring as she prepared for the worst. Maybe you can help me paint something special, the stranger said, extending a hand that seemed gentle but heavy, a harbinger of truths not yet spoken. No. Eleanor practically shouted before calming herself, remembering she was in public. Come on, Jake. Let us finish this artwork. She stepped forward, positioning herself protectively between her grandson and the stranger. Jake looked up at her, confused. But Grandma, he's nice. Before Eleanor could answer, the crowd's whispers turned into pointed questions directed at her. Is that the woman who? Panic surged again. She felt like a puppet, strings pulled taut by invisible hands. The stranger's gaze never wavered, it bore into her, finding all the cracks in her facade. Eleanor, he started, his voice woven with familiarity that made her stomach churn. You don't get to call me that, she shot back, arms crossed across her chest, trying to shield the quaking truth beneath. Who are you? The crowd watched, breath caught, barely whispering now. Jake turned, sensing the tension but not understanding the gravity. Grandma, you're scaring me, he murmured. The stranger raised his hands slowly, palms open. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want you to know that. Eleanor's heart raced, drowning out all thoughts but one word, escape. She didn't want to hear the truth, she didn't want the past to claw its way back into her life. We should go. She grabbed Jake's hand, ready to retreat, ready to protect him from the chaos that was her life, but when she looked at the stranger one last time, he was no longer just a shadow. He was a reminder that some things can't be outrun. Eleanor, it's time to face what you've buried, he said softly, as the quiet grew louder, and in that moment, amid her frantic heartbeats and echoing fear, she realized she had one choice: continue to run, or bravely confront the swarm of truth standing in front of her. With the air thick with possibility, she hesitated. Could she summon the courage to embrace the hidden dangers of her past? Would she dare to uncover what lied beneath the surface? As she stood there, the world around her faded, leaving just her, Jake's innocent face beside hers, and the stranger a living link to everything she had hoped to forget. What would she choose? Eleanor's grip tightened on Jake's hand as she felt a tidal wave of memories break over her. Panic surged through her, throbbing in sync with her racing heart. The sounds of the fair, a cheerful collage of laughter, splattered paint, and music faded, replaced by her own breathing, heavy and labored. Grandma? Jake's voice cut through her fog. His small face bore an expression of confusion now, vulnerable and wide-eyed. Why are you scared? His innocent question struck her like a slap. I'm not scared, she lied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She knelt beside him, bringing them eye to eye. Let us just finish that beautiful star, okay? But that stranger still lingered behind them, his presence heavier now, as if he'd grown roots in the ground. A chill crept up her spine, and she could feel the heat of the crowd pressing in like a wave, their whispers swirling around her. What if he revealed her secrets? The stranger took a step forward, closing the distance. Something in his eyes told tales of old, of a chapter she had fought to erase. Eleanor, please, he said softly, reaching out again, his hand trembling slightly. You can't hide from this. From me. Jake turned to the stranger, still brimming with childlike wonder. Why do you know my grandma? Jake, let us go. Eleanor picked him up gently, though he squirmed slightly, wanting to run closer to the stranger. She's an artist too, the stranger interjected, his voice dipping with a gravity that drew her gaze. And she has something beautiful to share, just like you do. Grandma is an artist? Jake's eyes shone. His excitement was a bright spot amidst the storm swirling within her. We should show him your paintings. Eleanor's stomach churned. No, I want to see. The stranger's voice cut through her protests. Eleanor, you used to dream about showing your work. Don't you want him to see your talent? Something flickered in her chest, like a candle battling a fierce wind. Did she? Could she? The memories of her brushes swiping paint across canvas flooded back, the feel of the art calling to her like an old friend. She hesitated, caught between fear and the threads of hope. The faces of the crowd blurred, morphing into faint silhouettes. All she wanted was to protect Jake from the truth, and yet, here he was, radiating innocence and belief. Jake, listen. Eleanor's voice quaked as she knelt again, leveling with him. Some things in the past are harder to face than others. It may be scary, but what if it's not scary? What if it's fun? He interrupted, eyes sparkling with excitement that tugged at her heart. You always say you love painting. Sweetheart, please, Grandma. He implored, his grip tightening around her finger. I want to see your art. I want to be proud of you. Tears threatened to spill as her world turned upside down. She wanted to scream, to run, to forget once more. But as she glanced at the stranger, she caught a glimpse of something deeper in his eyes, a look of understanding, an acknowledgement of pain shared. That's it. Jake shouted, his tiny fists raising victoriously. Let us make something together. Just like I did. The crowd shifted. A range of emotions danced on their faces: curiosity, judgment, and some murmurings of concern. They were all waiting, hanging on Eleanor's decision like it was a tightrope stretched above an abyss. Could she do it? Could she strip away the fear and let the light back in? Would this moment allow her to reclaim a part of herself she thought long lost? With a deep breath, Eleanor turned her focus back to Jake, and then to the stranger, a connection forming between them that felt like a bridge over turbulent waters. All right, she whispered, the weight of her decision pressing upon her like an anchor. Let us paint. As she agreed, the air around them shimmered with a mix of nervous energy and tentative hope, signaling a new beginning. But just as soon as sugar-coated excitement settled over her, the stranger's next words hung heavy in the air. And maybe it's time to talk about the truth, too. Eleanor's heart plummeted as the truth against her seams throbbed louder than the paint splatters across Jake's canvas. How would she confront the truths she had hidden? The crowd waited in rapt silence, ready for the reveal that she had tried to escape for so long. Would she drown or rise to the occasion? Eleanor's heart raced, the weight of the moment pulling her under like a tidal wave. She could feel Jake's small body tense in her arms, his excitement waiting to explode like fireworks in the evening sky. The stranger stood before them, a reminder of the past she'd worked so hard to bury. And yet there was a flicker of something new in the air, the distant sound of paintbrushes dancing across canvas, calling to her. Jake, she whispered, her voice barely audible, this is about more than just paint. It's about trust, and it's about facing what I fear the most. But if it's scary, Grandma, he began, eyes pleading, I'll be right here with you. His unwavering faith overwhelmed her. She had always fought to shield him from her struggles, but now here was Jake, asking her to let him into her world. Eleanor inhaled deeply, the sound of laughter and music at the fair fading further away as she focused on her grandson. Okay, she said, clearing her throat. We can paint, and I'll try to be honest. The tentative agreement stirred a ripple through the crowd. Gasps intermingled with whispers of disbelief. She could feel their eyes scanning her face, searching for signs of the fear she'd just promised to face, but before they could move toward the art station, the stranger stepped closer. Eleanor, start with your story, he urged. Your truth can heal you. This is your chance to be free. In a heartbeat, Eleanor's throat tightened, words choking her. I don't know where to begin, she confessed, looking at Jake, who looked back at her with wide, trusting eyes. Start with love, Jake suggested. Love is powerful. There was wisdom in his simplicity, a surprising insight she hadn't expected from someone so young. As she stood there, Eleanor remembered the light-filled studio where she had lost herself in colors. The memories tumbled forward, violent yet vivid. Making art had felt like a heartbeat, a pulse in her veins. But life had swept in, dulled her colors, and stamped out that brightness. She took a step forward, the crowd parting in muted respect. When I was younger, I believed art would set me free. The stranger listened intently, and even the murmurs from the crowd calmed. But something happened, something that made me feel ashamed. Art became a reminder of everything I couldn't achieve, a burden I carried. Jake squeezed her hand tighter as if lending her strength. You can do it, Grandma. The truth makes things better. Tears brimmed in Eleanor's eyes as she glanced at the strangers holding their breath, captivated. The unknown became less frightening as she met the stranger's steady gaze. It felt like he understood her too well. I lost my way, she continued, the words spilling forth. And I stopped painting. I thought maybe if I ignore my old dreams, they'd go away. And they didn't. Jake asked softly, still holding her hand. No. Eleanor wiped away the tears that threatened to spill even as a smile began to bloom. They just turned into whispers, begging me to listen, urging me to create again. The crowd, who moments ago seemed like judges, now morphed into a tapestry of hearts open wide. Eleanor took a deep breath, feeling lighter with each word. Each memory shared a quiet revolution unfolding right there, in the midst of the fair. Let us paint, she whispered, her voice steadier now. She turned to the stranger, who nodded encouragingly. Let us make something beautiful together and face what comes next. The anticipation danced in the air, charged with emotion, as colors and canvases awaited her. But as the first brush had yet to touch the surface, a shiver traveled through her gut. What if they saw more than just paint? What if the truth of her past threatened to overshadow even this blossoming moment? Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the crowd. Gasps of surprise rippled through like a wild breeze. Eleanor turned, her heart racing as she saw someone push through the onlookers, drawing closer. It was a young woman with fierce determination in her eyes, and Eleanor could sense something powerful arising. Who was she, and what did she bring with her that could shift the air yet again? Eleanor. We need to talk. The woman shouted, and suddenly every heart in the crowd beat like a drum, echoing the weight of the words just spoken. What could this mean, as the promise of a new beginning began to twist yet again into complex shadows? Eleanor's breath caught in her throat as the young woman approached, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. She was tall, with dark hair cascading in waves that framed her face, eyes flashing with urgency. Eleanor's mind raced. Did this woman know her? Did she know about her past? Was she here to expose something? Eleanor. The woman repeated, her voice still loud enough to carry through the hushed crowd. I'm Nina. We don't have much time. Nina's intensity pulled at Eleanor's curiosity and fear simultaneously. She glanced at Jake, who looked wide-eyed and slightly bewildered, and then back to the crowd encircling them like a living wall. Eleanor felt all eyes on her, caught in a spotlight she had long tried to avoid. Who are you? Eleanor asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. I worked for your family years ago, Nina said, her tone shifting slightly, allowing a hint of vulnerability to seep through. I didn't have a choice but to come here today. There are things that need to be said. Things about your past. A ripple of recognition coursed through Eleanor. Memories washed over her, fragmentary and painful. She was just a girl then, too focused on her own dreams to see how her family's actions impacted others. What do you mean? Eleanor's voice was low, almost a whisper. Nina stepped closer, the weight of her presence demanding attention. Your decisions have reverberated far beyond what you realize. You've been hiding, but it's time to face it. Jake squeezed Eleanor's hand, grounding her in the chaos swirling around. We can do this, Grandma. He urged, his unwavering support lighting a small spark inside her. Eleanor took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm within her. What do you want me to face? The question hung in the air, barely breaking through her rising fear. It's not just about you and your art, Nina said, her voice softer now, but still urgent. It's about the people left behind. The ones who loved you and got lost in your shadow. Eleanor's heart sank. I thought I was protecting them. Her words were a plea even she didn't quite believe. By hiding? Nina challenged, stepping closer still. You shut us out. You buried your light. And now it's time to let it back in. For you, for them, and for yourself. The truth of Nina's words felt like a fist to Eleanor's gut. She had spent so long running from the shadows that now came creeping back. The fear of her past felt hungry, clawing at the edges of her new beginnings. Maybe this isn't just about me, is it? She whispered, realization dawning on her like the morning sun rising after a long, dark night. No, Nina replied, her expression softening. This is about hope. About redemption. About reclaiming your voice through the pain and the stories you have yet to tell. Eleanor's hands trembled, uncertainty flooding her senses. Suddenly, the paintbrushes at her feet felt like more than tools, they felt like a lifeline. Could she be brave enough to seize this moment? Jake appeared more animated, squeezing her hand once again. Can we paint something happy? Something that shows love? He suggested, his innocent enthusiasm burning bright. Nina nodded emphatically, stepping back to make space. Yes. Together, let us create something beautiful that honors all of it. The pain and the joy, the love you once had and the love yet to come. Eleanor looked from Jake to Nina, her heart pounding in a mix of fear and exhilaration. Was this it? Was this the moment she had waited for? Could she push through and honor the girl who once believed in herself? Then she noticed the crowd, their faces filled with a strange mixture of anticipation and compassion. They were not here to judge. They were here to witness something transformative. With a steadying breath, Eleanor stepped forward, closer to the easel waiting for her touch. As she lifted a brush in trembling fingers, she glanced back at Nina. What happens if I don't? Nina's gaze was fierce. You might lose your chance to heal not just for you, but for everyone affected by your choices. It starts here, Eleanor. It starts now. The challenge echoed in Eleanor's mind. Could she bear to unearth the truths buried beneath layers of paint, regret, and fear? She tightened her grip on Jake's hand, feeling waves of love wash over her, igniting a fire of determination. Yes, she said finally, her voice rising above the crowd. Let us paint. With that declaration, Eleanor dipped the brush into vibrant colors, ready to confront what came next. But the power of the revelation lingering in the air threatened to erupt, leaving her trembling with both excitement and dread. As the first stroke marked the canvas, a sense of possibility hung heavy, waiting for the truth to leap free. And just then, before she could make the next move, a familiar face appeared at the edge of the crowd, a figure she hadn't seen in years. Could this be another twist in her journey, or was she about to face the ghosts of her past once and for all? Eleanor's heart raced as she squinted through the crowd, searching for the familiar face. Memories flickered like shadows, looming just out of reach. The crowd parted once more, revealing the figure with a face she recognized too well: Margaret, an old friend who had been woven into the fabric of her early life. But now, Margaret wore an expression of trepidation, as though the weight of years had settled heavily on her shoulders. Margaret? Eleanor's voice broke the silence, and the murmurs across the space seemed to hush, as if anticipating what might unfold. Margaret stepped forward, her features softening at the sight of Eleanor, but the hesitation lingered. I didn't know you were going to be here, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought you had left it all behind. With each word, Eleanor felt the memories flooding back, the laughter, the shared dreams, and the pain of separation. It was as if the past had reached into the present, dragging along fragments of regret and nostalgia. I thought I had too. But some things they're harder to let go of. Some things shouldn't be let go of, Margaret replied, her eyes glistening. And sometimes, they come back to find you. Eleanor nodded, understanding the weight of those words. In that moment, surrounded by the crowd, she was no longer just a grandmother, she was a woman confronting her history, grappling with the choices that had led her to this place. "Nina was just telling me about the people I left behind," she said, glancing at the younger woman, who gave an encouraging nod. I thought I was protecting them. But maybe I just ran away." Margaret's gaze softened further, and she took a step closer. "You weren't the only one hurting, Eleanor. We all were." Looking into her friend's eyes, Eleanor felt the tearful sting of remorse. "I didn't see it then. I was too wrapped up in my own struggles." The crowd stood as witnesses, their breaths collectively held, drawn into the nuances of their exchange. Jake remained at Eleanor's side, squeezing her hand, his faith unwavering. "You can do it, Grandma," he urged, innocence and strength mingling in his gaze. In that moment, Eleanor drew inspiration from those tiny hands. She turned to the easel, her heart thrumming with conviction. Could she really put her feelings onto canvas and break the chains of silence that had kept her mute for too long? "Let us paint something that tells our story," she said, her voice gaining strength. "A story of connection, of loss, and of love that has always remained." With renewed resolve, she dipped the brush deeper into vibrant colors, mixing hues with deliberate strokes. Each sweep of the brush felt like an offering, a release of herself onto the canvas. Shapes began to form as colors intertwined, creating a representation of the complex emotions bottled up for so long. The crowd began to shuffle forward, curiosity igniting embers of excitement. Whispers spread through them, admiration lacing their voices as they watched Eleanor pour herself into the canvas. As the first image emerged, the heartbeat of the moment quickened, the sounds of the world around her fading into the background. Suddenly, she felt the prick of tears at the corners of her eyes. But this time, they weren't tears of despair, they were tears of catharsis. She was not just painting, she was healing. As she painted wildflowers blooming in the brightest shades, she found herself evoking memories of laughter shared under the sun, the feel of warm summer days lingering in the air. Each stroke became a reminder that love blossomed even in the most tumultuous of climates, but just as the scene began to come together, the crowd shifted with a ripple of unease. Eleanor caught sight of another figure approaching, a man with familiar features, his eyes shadowed by conflict. "Who is that?" she wondered aloud, her heart throttling against her chest. Margaret turned, her expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. "That's Matthew. You need to talk to him, Eleanor. Before it's too late." Eleanor's breath faltered. Matthew, another thread tangled in her past, had returned. Would this moment mend what had been shattered, or would it unravel everything she had begun to build? As she held her brush above the canvas, donning courage on her face, the question loomed: could she face him and the path she had traveled, or would she step back into the shadows once again? Eleanor's heart raced as she faced Matthew, the man from her past who had been a beacon of hope and love before everything fell apart. Their eyes locked, and memories flooded back, laughter shared, dreams woven together. But now, years of silence piled between them like bricks. Was he here to accuse or to heal? Eleanor. The sound of his voice was both familiar and foreign, slicing through the air thick with anticipation. The crowd around them seemed to dissolve, leaving just the two of them hanging in a fragile moment suspended in time. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, an undercurrent of regret lacing his tone. "I didn't either," she replied, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "But I am trying to make things right." Matthew stepped closer, the warmth of his presence forging a connection she thought had been lost forever. "I've watched you struggle, Eleanor. I've carried my own weight of regrets. But it's not too late for either of us." His words settled around her, pulling her back to a time when they dreamed together. "Too many lives have been affected by my choices," she whispered, glancing at Jake, who was still eagerly engaged in the painting process. "I thought I was a shield to protect you all, but I only built a wall." "No one is perfect," Matthew said softly, his gaze steady. "We're all flawed. But we can learn, we can grow." He reached out, the sincerity in his expression piercing her defenses. She felt her heart clench, a mixture of longing for connection and the chains of the past binding her tightly. Jake called out, "Grandma, can you show us the next part?" His innocent excitement cut through the heavy atmosphere, a reminder that hope lived on in the present, despite the echoes of what had been. Eleanor drew in a shaky breath, hesitation mixing with purpose. "Matthew, if we are to move forward, I need to face what we left behind. I need to let it go." The power in her voice surprised even her. It was more than a plea, it was a declaration. "Then let us do it together," he replied, stepping further into the light, a symbol of solidarity. The crowd held its breath, caught in the tension of two souls seeking redemption. Eleanor returned to the canvas, dipping her brush into the paint as memories washed over her. She painted a river flowing freely, symbolizing the journey of emotions and the lessons learned. "Together, we can tell our story," she said, her eyes filled with determination. "We can weave all the pain and the joy into something meaningful." The colors blended beautifully, each swipe of the brush representing the connection they had once shared and the struggles they overcame. She heard whispers of admiration as people began to step closer, drawn in by the colors, by the emerging tale. Jake watched eagerly, his face lit with inspiration. "I want to add something," he exclaimed, reaching for a brush. "Can I help make it really colorful?" Eleanor's heart swelled, pride bursting within her. "Of course, sweetheart. Let us make this represent all of us." She lifted her arm and gently guided his hand, showing him how to express his own vision. Together, they layered bright bursts of colors across the canvas, a vivid representation of love, hope, and the resilience of the human spirit. Around them, the crowd came alive. People began to move toward the painting as if sensing the transformative energy rippling through them. Conversation sparked, their previous judgments fading as the community began to unite, just as Jake had always believed they could. "Look!" a voice rang out. "It's beautiful." Eleanor glanced up, disbelief softening her heart. The crowd that had once stood as a barrier now transformed into a tableau of support, their faces glowing with admiration. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt seen not as a woman burdened by her past, but as an artist capable of healing. As the final strokes emerged, Eleanor stepped back, her breath hitching at the vibrant depiction before her. In this moment of creation, behind layers of laughter, and in the midst of shared pain, Eleanor realized something monumental had shifted. The truth she had feared to face had merely been a bridge leading to reconnection with herself, her past, and her loved ones. "Now!" cried Jake, throwing his arms wide. "Let us celebrate." The crowd erupted into cheers, clapping and laughter intertwining through the air like a beautiful melody. Eleanor and Matthew exchanged a knowing smile, the shadows of the past slowly dissipating. Eleanor felt the warmth of acceptance wrap around her like a beloved blanket. Together, she whispered, realizing this was only the beginning of something promising. A future where love, art, and honesty could flourish. In that moment, surrounded by family and friends aspiring to embrace change, Eleanor knew she had finally taken off the mask. "Let us keep painting our story," she murmured, her heart full of hope, ready to welcome whatever came next. And as the cheers continued to pulse, she felt everyone moving together, the rhythm of community echoing a message of unity and love. This was the moment of transformation that had always been waiting, and Eleanor was ready to embrace it fully. Now, don't wait not even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will continue changing lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep our community thriving. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear your story. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and join our journey of hope. This is the moment to show your support. Let's spread this message far and wide.